Hello ladies and gentlemen, in my never-ending quest to bring you the latest in technology, I'm going to bring you something from 1983. The Sony STR-VX10L. It's a hi-fi amplifier, or receiver as sometimes they're called. Basically, it's radio with built-in amplifier, and you plug your components into it. So as you can see here, there's a phono slot for record players and a CD aux. So this was launched in '83, so at the time they probably didn't know if CD was going to be a success or not, hence the reason why it's probably on, they've got one input shared between the two. In later models they had separate inputs for CD and aux, but in 1983 that's what we had. It's a nice piece of retro technology, and there seems to be a bit of a thing on the internet now, on YouTube in particular, for retro hi-fi. Tech Moan seems to be the god of that kind of stuff. He's got fantastic videos that cover all weird and wonderful formats, and he goes into detail on it, and definitely check him out because he's fascinating. But this is my little bit of retro technology, retro hi-fi technology, which I hope you'll find interesting. What I am going to do with it is, in a wee while, compare it to the Sonos 5. Now the Sonos 5 it's a Wi-Fi network music player. Basically you connect it to your Wi-Fi network, and then using an app on your phone you play your music through it. It's simple, it's foolproof, it doesn't go wrong, it sounds okay, good. They do have a problem with the sound, which I'm going to address in a bit, but like, it's simple technology. You put it in the corner of your room and it works. Well, it's underneath the hood, it's not simple, it's quite complicated, but from a user's perspective it's fairly simple and reliable. But let's, before going on to that, let's have a look at this. Now the speakers here are fairly modern Sony speakers, mid-range. Found them in a second-hand shop, they were like €5, so that's what I got for this. So I'll switch her on.
They weren't popular with what? I think it was about 1,200 members who left the STI.
And I'm just going to start taking you through the tuning. And as you can see, although it has PLL tuning, it doesn't have RDS, because RDS was a few years off. And let's lower the volume a bit. Yeah, as you can see, the tuning is quite slow. I don't want to stop at any music stations for too long, because I don't want to get a copyright strike. There are some rubbish stations in Dublin. There we go, come on. Radio na Gaeltachta, it's our Irish language station. Yeah, the reception isn't very good because I don't really have a proper antenna attached to it, but for the big stations it's good enough for me. Let's keep going for a bit. So let's try out long wave. And for some reason it asks me to type in the number directly, the frequency, so we'll go for 252, and you get a simulcast of RT Radio 1. People in the UK may know this is the frequency that used to belong to Atlantic 252, that late 80s, early 90s music station, which always sounded like it was wavering around because of the way long wave transmission works. So if we go back to FM, in the days before RDS, how did you store your radio station presets? Well, what you did is you go to get a frequency, get a station tuned in, and press the memory button, choose a button. Now you can go between the two. Now one problem with this is that it's not storing the presets, the memory locations, after I switch it off, so I'm assuming there's a button cell battery that needs to be replaced, but I'm not too fussed with that. But okay, but how do you know which stations are which? Well, you would pull that out and write it on that. Simple. 80s tech, hey. Now one of the things I noticed about this, it has actually got two speaker outputs. So I'm not quite sure if they're bi-wired, and that's what you get, a feature you get in some high-end hi-fi systems where the lower frequency audio is sent down a different pair of speaker wires than the higher frequency audio. So in theory, by splitting it out and sending it down two sets of wires, it ends up with the speakers sounding better. I don't know if I buy into that at all, but a lot of people, whoa, got my screwdriver, but a lot of people do. Over here we've got a bass boost button, a loudness button, which basically gives it a bit more bass. So it's, nowadays they'd call it bass boost or super mega bass extender, but back then it was just called loudness, and bass treble balance, and a rather nice sliding audio volume control, and so it's very simple tech. Oh, and I really like it. It's simple, it's reliable, and if it broke down, you'd be able to repair the components, assuming it was like something like a capacitor or a resistor. Now, €64,000 question, how does it sound? Well, I've got some music to test out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to test this against the Sonos and tell you how it goes. So I'm using music from the YouTube music library because I don't particularly want to get a copyright strike, so I'll put it under auxiliary, and now of course one thing I should say before I proceed is that I'm using an external microphone, so it's going to pick up background noise. It's not the best way of doing this, but I think for this comparison it'll work, so bear that in mind. I'll start again. Well, there we go with that one. Pay particular attention to the beats that came in at the end, the heavy, repetitive, pumping beats, because that will highlight the biggest difference between these two systems. So what I'm going to do now is plug in the Sonos. And I'm using an line-in connection, so I'm not using the Wi-Fi connection. I'm just using the lead plugged into the back. And we'll start with that one as well and see the difference. Oh. That as well. Now, hopefully you noticed one of the biggest differences between the two, between the Sonos and the Sony, was that the bass on the Sonos sounded deeper and rounder. Now, some people like that. I don't, because one of my biggest bugbears with modern hi-fi equipment is that and audio equipment in general that's been made in recent years is that there's an obsession with processing the sound. You know, with this, the sound comes into the amplifier stage through the radio or through the line in or for the phono, goes into the amplifier, comes out the speakers. There's no bassing it up. There's no altering the sound. With this, there clearly is something going on. They would argue that the speakers are just more bass heavy than say these speakers here. But there's definitely some sort of processing going on. Like if you've read up on Dr. Dre Beats headphones, you'll hear people talking about how they alter the profile of the music just make it sound deeper and heavier. Now they use the term richness when in sound processing. I don't like that term. For me, I would rather have a more natural sound, and that's why I like this old equipment. It doesn't process the sound. And the bass and treble controls are very, very simple. No, it's not like with this here with the Sonos in the app. You've got a full graphics equalizer, and there's all various presets, so you make it sound like a concert hall or a cathedral or something like that. There, I don't necessarily want that. Now, so people would say, well, well, surely it sounds a bit, no, people want bass, that's what people do. I don't. Now, I've always said if you want to test your audio equipment for response, what I'm looking for is flat frequency response. Flat basically means the sound that comes out of the speakers is as close to the original source as possible, with as little processing as possible. It's flat, basically, it hasn't changed. There's an album by the great Mike Oldfield called Amarok. It's a fantastic album. I'm not going to play it because I don't want to get hit for copyright infringement, but I definitely recommend you check it out. It's one album with one song, 60 minutes long, and the album covers all musical styles in this song. So it goes from opening up, you've got like fast guitars, then you go into choirs, then you've got rock guitars, drums, tin whistles, bagpipes, and even throw in stuff like people brushing their teeth and Margaret Thatcher impersonators for good measure. But the thing with this piece of music is, if you're listening to it through a bass heavy system, there's lots of little details you don't pick up. So like I say, I definitely recommend it. It's a good album, and it's a good way to test how good your equipment is. Because if you start picking up all little background details like whispers in the background and unusual instruments being played, then you know you've got a flatter frequency response. I'm not an audiophile, I'm just someone who likes good music and good sound. So there you go. If you see a piece of 80s technology like this on eBay or in flea markets or second-hand shops, check it out. It's cheap. You might actually enjoy it, because I personally prefer listening to music on this rather than the Sonos, even though the Sonos is a lot easier to use. So there you go. Cheers. Take care. Bye-bye.